actually spans throughout the entirety of this canto and the entirety of the fourth canto. So these two cantos are full of this relationship, and we get a lot of instruction and a lot of clues on how to ask about transcendental knowledge, how to understand transcendental knowledge, and the process by which we can come to a clear, not only just figuring out the answers, but actually it's called vegan, I'd like really under just getting the knowledge to answer the question, but there's realization within that knowledge. So these are really important sections of the Bhagavatam. So sometimes we focus on one level, but there's a lot of different levels going on. Just like, who's really speaking right now? What's the furthest level out? Who knows who's speaking to who? Yeah, Sutta is speaking to the head of Namishran Yashajas, who are Shonaka Rishi. There, he's depicting what? Conversation between who? Sukadeva Goswami, Parikshit, and now we're hearing Sukadeva is conveying this conversation of Maitreya. So and then Vidura and Maitreya will, throughout this third and fourth canto, there'll be other conversations that they're depicting. So sometimes it's good to have a refresher that speaking. This is all about. So what we'll do is we'll read all the translations for 1 to 20, and then because there's actually some detail and some complication in the questions and answers, because you get a chunk of questions, then you get a chunk of answers. I'm going to try to kind of segment those out a little bit, so we don't really have. It would have been. I did last time I had a problem with my format, and so I didn't make a slideshow, but I brought some notes. Will help us kind of try to keep these concise. So let's go ahead and do as Krishna House does and reads the translations together, or one by one, each of the students, starting with text one. Yes.
Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, O king, while Maitreya, the great sage, was thus speaking, Vidura, the learned son of Dvaipayana Vyas, expressed a request in a pleasing manner by asking this question.
Buddha said, O great Brahmana, since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the complete spiritual whole and is unchangeable, how is he connected with the material modes of nature and their activities? If this is his pastime, how did the activity of the unchangeable take place and exhibit qualities without the modes of nature?
Boys are enthusiastic to play with other boys, or with various diversions, because they are encouraged by desire. But there is no possibility of such desire for the Lord, because he is self-satisfied and detached from everything at all times.
By his self-sheltered potency of the three modes of material nature, the Lord has caused the creation of this universe. By her he maintains the creation and conversely dissolves it again and again.
The pure soul is pure consciousness and is never out of consciousness, either due to circumstances, time, situation, dreams, or other causes. How then does he become engaged in essence?
The Lord, as the Supersoul, is situated in every living being's heart. Why then do the living entities' activities result in misfortune and misery?
O great and learned one, my mind is greatly illusioned by the distress of this nescience, and I therefore request you to clear it up.
Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O King Maitreya, being thus agitated by the inquisitive Vidura, at first seemed astonished, but then he replied to him without hesitation, since he was fully God-conscious.
Sri Madhava said, certain conditioned souls put forward the theory that the Supreme Brahmana or the personality of Godhead is overcome by illusion or Maya, and at the same time they maintain that he is unconditioned. This is against all logic.
The living entity is in distress regarding his self-identity. He has no factual background, like a man who dreams that he sees his head cut off.
As the moon reflected on water appears to the sphere to tremble due to be associated with the quality of the body, so the self-associated with matter appears to be qualified as matter.
But that misconception of self-identity can be diminished gradually by the mercy of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, through the process of devotional service to the Lord in the mode of detachment.
When the senses are satisfied and the seers know the personality of Godhead and merge in him, all miseries are completely vanquished, as after a sound sleep.
Simply by chanting and hearing of the transcendental name, form, etc. of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one can achieve the cessation of unlimited miserable conditions. Therefore, what to speak of those who have attained the attraction for serving the flavor of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet?
Vidura said, O powerful sage, my Lord, all my doubts about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities have now been removed by convincing words. My mind is now perfectly entering into them.
O learned sage, your explanations are very good, as they should be. Disturbances to the conditioned soul have no other basis than the movement of the external energy of the Lord.
Both the lowest of fools and he who is transcendental to all intelligence enjoys happiness, whereas persons between them suffer the material pains.
But my dear sir, I'm obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I am confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea.
By serving the feet of the spiritual master, one is enabled to develop transcendental ecstasy in the service of the personality of Godhead, who is the unchangeable enemy of the Madhu demon, and whose service vanquishes one's material distresses.
Persons whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees, but progressing on the path back to the kingdom of God at the Vaikuntras. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the same Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all the living entities.
Amen. So, I don't know if everyone was able to follow the flow of these questions and answers and realizations. All three were there within that reading. So what I've done is I've separated out the questions into three, you could say, broad questions. And we'll go through those and then we'll go through the answers. So the first question, and again, all these questions are our relationship with the Lord and his material creation. So this is covered a little bit in the last chapter of the creation. And so Vidura has some questions on this, obviously. And to make it very personal for us, these are questions I hope we all have, or all have had at one point and are coming to hear from Krishna or hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam. So the first question, in summary, it's a combination of 2 and 3, verses 2 and 3. Does the Lord, as the creator of the illusory energy, so the Lord creates everything. He is the creator. He is the creator of everything. And so this is also a little bit of psychology. Because when we create something, what happens? Yeah, we become attached to it. I mean, I build some things and I become attached to them. We build something, or if you create a child, you become very attached to it. You create anything, you become attached to it. Very rare. Well, I guess if you're in an assembly line, maybe a creator and you're making pens or something. Not one pen, it's different. So that's a little aloof. But if you're the creator of that design, you love to see people, oh yeah, they got my pen. The other one. You become very attached to it. And so Vidura's using this psychology that he's the creator of everything, and I know when I create something, I become attached to it. So here's the question. He's the creator of it. Does he possess desires that motivate him to interact with that material energy that he's created? Does his desires, are they like ours? And if so, if he does have those like we do, does he become entangled? So this is more or less the first question. And so the answer begins, I think it's mostly in text 9, and I'll find that. Text 9, and it's not like a direct, it's not a direct answer. You could say that, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's a little bit, so therefore we need the purport for that one. And so, for certain conditions, souls put forward the theory that the Supreme, is overcome by illusion. So this is the whole Mayavad philosophy that, we're all supreme, but we become overcome by illusion. But he says, this is against all logic, true logic. And so in the purport, Prabhupada pulls from Vishwanath Chakravarti, from Jiva Goswami, and he says, sometimes it appears that the Lord, who is 100% spiritual, cannot be the cause of the illusory potency which covers the knowledge of the individual soul, but factually there is no doubt that the illusory external energy is also part and parcel of the Lord. So this is a lot in the Mayamitam Jagat Sarvam. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, I pervade this entire universe. I'm the creator of the universe. But I don't get affected by it. I'm aloof. And the example, the excellent example that Jiva Goswami Vishwanath Gita that Prabhupada is sharing, says that they say that although the sun is all light, or so conceive, we all have some idea of the sun. We're in sunny Florida. And instead of trying to follow, because people will try to lose track. The sun is there, but the sun is also the cause of clouds, darkness, and snowfall are all parts of the sun. So you would question, well, what does that mean? Without the sun, there is no possibility of the sky being overcast with clouds or darkness. So obviously, the last day or so, we're experiencing this. You can say the sun's out, but then I could say, well, can you prove it? Where is the sun? Can you show me the sun? I can't show you the sun right now, but we know it's there. Right? That's logical. That seems to be logic. But if we say, which is against logic, the cloud has covered the sun, and so the sun is no longer there. That's against the logic, though. Because if you look, you got to step back. A lot of times we have to just step back. you see the sun in the solar system, or whatever conception of our solar system we're carrying at this time, if you step back, that this cloud that's covering, North Florida right now is so tiny. It's so tiny that, and a lot of times we realize this when we're going to air flight. We go above the clouds and it's like all of a sudden it's total sun. You gotta shut the shades because it's too sunny. But there's clouds there. And then the other thing is that the clouds are the creation of the sun. They are nothing but the creation of the sun. The evaporation of moisture from the planet's surface or the oceans or wherever, they are created by the sun. But the sun is not affected by it. It's not that, oh, the sun is weaker today because the clouds have weakened it. Like if we take an ice cube and we put heat around it, the ice cube is diminished. The sun isn't diminished by the clouds. The sun is there always as a supreme source of heat and light. But sometimes we feel darkness because the mass of earth is covering it, or the mountains of Meru covering whatever conception we are currently using. Or, that's covered by clouds, by snow. Here's snowfall as well. So, although life is sustained by the sun, life is also distributed by darkness and snowfall produced by the sun. But it is also a fact that the sun itself is never overcome by darkness, clouds, or snowfall. The sun is far, far away from such disturbances. So the answer to Vidura's first question is no, of course not. Yes, he creates it. He creates it for a purpose. There's the illusory energy is there, and its run, or its machinery, is the three modes of material nature. But the Lord, he is not affected by it like we are. So then his second question. How does, and this is more or less verse 5, how does the living entity, and again it's been established, he's establishing the living entity as pure consciousness. We are part and parcel of Krishna. We have pure consciousness. So how does such a purely conscious living entity become covered by ignorance? If the Lord doesn't become covered by ignorance, and we are part of the Lord, how is it that we're becoming covered by ignorance? We would think we'd have the get out of jail free card, that I don't need to be covered. I'm part and parcel of the big guy, no problem for me, right? And so he has a second part to the same question. How can they, also having that same eternality nature as Krishna does, how can they not remember their identity even? Not only are they covered by it, but they completely forget who they are. So this is Vidura's second question, and these are questions that we have often. So to answer this, Maitreya characterizes the living entities as parts and parcels, but we are, and this Prabhupada also emphasizes over and over again, we are minute, we are very small. And so even though we are of that supreme nature, tasmats vyakto vyakta sanatana, although that is our eternal nature, we are part and parcel of Krishna. We have the same, many of the qualities, but they're just minute. They're very small. And so when the vastness of Godhead, when he creates the material energy, and he puts these very minute living entities within it, that energy that he has created is so vast and is so powerful. We have the tendency to be overcome by it. And then what happens is, we start to feel complete identification with it. Just as in a dream, if something horrible happens to us in a dream, we feel it and we identify it with it. And if we, example, with head cut off. So sometimes we get heads cut off, or we get so many things happen in our dreams, and we wake up in a shudder, and so we're affected by it. So how is that? How is that? Because we're covered by the dream. And so that dream, or that coveredness of sleep, is the material nature, the modes. That's the relationship Maitreya is giving here, that our sleeping condition, where we are forgetful of who we are actually, is the illusion. It's not that we don't exist any longer, but we still exist, but we're just covered by that illusion. So, and another example Maitreya gives, is when we see the moon reflected on the water. The moon is there in the sky, and if you throw a pebble in the water, it looks like the moon is quivering. So we are in that condition right now. Although we are pure, spirit, soul, constitutionally, absolutely pure and 100%. What was that? See what it says. The pure soul is pure consciousness and is never out of consciousness. We're never out of that. But due to circumstances, time, situation, dreams, and other causes, we become forgetful of it. And so that moon never quivers. When we look in the sky, the moon never quivers. But if we're seeing the reflection of the moon being interacted with the modes of water in that case, it looks like it's shaking. So it appears that even though we are pure spirit, soul, purely constitution, 100% unaffected by the modes, it appears we are, because we're covered. We have allowed ourselves to be covered, and we've been forgetful. And then the third and final question. So he asked about the Lord. First question, he asked about the living entity. Now he wants to bring them together. As I've heard, the Lord is in the heart of the living entity always. They're always together. What is the relationship with that soul and the super soul? Since the super soul is in the heart as the constant companion, how come the living entity still ends up covered? So why is it that the Lord would even allow us, if he's constantly with us and he is constantly unaffected, why is it that we're still being affected, even though we have all this wonderful association right with us? And the answer to that is more or less, well, it's 12 through 14. So we're going to go into that a little more deeper. So the relationship is our true wakeful state of consciousness. So that relationship of Krishna and the soul is fully manifest when we're fully awake, when we're no longer covered. So our endeavors need to be to stay awake. Don't go to sleep. There's an old movie, and you can't go to sleep. If you go to sleep, a little pod would open up and a clone would come out. Anyway, it was just very scary. So how do we reconcile this, and how do we get free of this? By the misconception of self-identity. So we in that dreaming state, we say, okay, that's me. And in my waking state, we hardly awaken anymore because we're covered by the clouds. We gradually, by the mercy of the Lord, through the process of devotional service to the Lord in a mode of detachment, we can diminish it. We can diminish it gradually. So that is our process of devotional service. Maitreya is saying that when the senses are satisfied, the Lord, when the senses are satisfied in service to that Lord, the Lord, they become really, truly, that relationship really, truly blossoms. And all the miseries are vanquished. Because the miseries of like seeing your head get cut off, that's a day-to-day thing when we're covered by the illusion. I mean, you can't deny it nowadays. There's suffering everywhere. And there's every newscast, every newspaper, there's suffering on one side, on the other side, everyone's suffering. And if we don't see that, if we think, oh, yeah, well, there's another material solution on top of the material solution that tried before, on top of that other material solution that tried before, we'll never find the end of it. There's always another and another and another. It's almost that we've kind of ruined the planet in that way. We used to be very, at least what we hear from history, was very simple, very agrarian, very in tune with nature, very in tune with the just the world itself and the interactions. But now it's like, as soon as you start putting artificial things on top of artificial things on top of artificial things, just my drive from the country to, I mean, how many hundreds and maybe thousands of cars that I pass, and that's just in this tiny sector. How many hundreds and thousands of cars and millions and billions of cars and how much pollution and how much those factories, and we're not saying obviously we're never going to use it. It's like that'd be a drop in the ocean, but it's a problem of society is created for itself, and it keeps multiplying, and so another material solution isn't going to solve it. It'll take a spiritual kind of vision, a spiritual understanding, and then that's what he alludes to, is vairagya, service of detachment. Simply by chanting and hearing of the transcendental name, form, etc. of the personality of God in Sri Krishna, one can achieve the cessation of unlimited material, miserable conditions. Therefore, what to speak of those who have attained attraction for serving the lotus feet? So there's two things that Prabhupada points out here, that there's two stages of devotion that Maitreya just alluded to in this verse. The first stage is our practice, our sadhana. We are practicing sadhana bhakti. We're hearing and chanting. We're engaging our senses in service under the direction of the spiritual master, and we'll speak on that in a moment. And we're gradually getting a taste, and we're starting to see things. I mean, we wouldn't ask these questions, however many years ago was your first introduction, or prior to that. We never asked those questions. We were just like, oh, wow, that's a cool new thing, let me get that, or that looks fun, let's go do this. We're not asking sometimes, or society in a whole isn't asking these important questions. How can we achieve cessation of these unlimited miserable conditions? Is it just that we find and usually the answer is given, if you can find a situation where you're not miserable, that's happiness. Like the ending of misery is happiness, but happiness is so much more than that. Happiness is relationships. Happiness is activity. It's not just the end of a toothache or something. Oh, the toothache's over now. It's like, no, what is real happiness is in relationship with people, relationship with loved ones, and activities for them, for each other. That's where real happiness comes from. So he then alludes and says, so for those who are hearing and chanting, they're starting to become free. Starting to get some clarity. Oh yeah, this philosophy, this understanding of Krishna consciousness is very nice. I actually can see now when, I'm suffering either mentally or physically, there's some source to it, there's something, and when I engage in Krishna conscious activities, oh, I immediately forget those things a lot of times. So then he alludes what to speak of those who have attacked. So once you hearing and chanting, you're clearing, and then you become attached to those things. And that Prabhupada mentions, that becomes rag bhakti, that becomes spontaneous. That oh, you can't say that, oh, I have to do it anymore. No, I'm going to do it because it brings me such joy and happiness. And so these are the more or less the three questions and answers between Vidura and Maitreya. Now Vidura, this is such a nice part, these last 5 verses. Vidura, he gives a realization now. He gives a realization, and he says, oh, all my doubts about the Lord and living entities have been removed by your convincing words. Now we can ask ourselves, was just reading through those once, did that fully convince us that, okay, I'm no longer attached? I'm not quite there yet, but for Vidura, he was so primed and ready. He is now perfectly entering into those discussions and those answers. Your explanations are great. Disturbances to the conditioned soul have no other basis than the movement of the external energy of the Lord. Let's say that again. So where do the disturbances come? First question, or the second question answer, right? External energy, but under what situation? It was a wonderful example Jiva Goswami Vishwanath gave. 2 examples. Just pick one I gave today. Get it? The sun being covered by the clouds. It's miserable, right? But when he went to London, he said, oh, London's hell, because there's never any sun. So when we're covered, or when we're asleep in the non-wakeful stage, that's when the miserable condition. So the disturbances in the miserable condition is when we're asleep, or when we're covered. And it has no other basis than just that external energy of the Lord, which the Lord has no connection to, that, or at least no connection that affects him. He is never affected by it. And then the third answer, we are together. He is with us in our heart, and he is able to help us through it. It's such a beautiful realization if we take a little time to hear these realizations from Vidura. And then this is a little joke, he gets a little sarcastic. He says, both the lowest of fools and those who are transcendental to all intelligence enjoy happiness. So fools are generally pretty happy because they have no conception of what's going on. And then those who are transcendental to all intelligence, I mean, very highly elevated persons, they're not affected by any of these miseries. They always seem to be joyful. It is, however, it is us middle people, who aren't quite, we're not complete fools, but we're also not on the highest level of understanding. We suffer material pains. But he said, but even that, my dear sir, so he's starting to really get this relation, and so early in the relationship of Vidura and Maitreya. This is just the first few chapters of their relation. He said, I'm so obliged to you. So obliged. So because now I can understand the material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I'm confident in your words, that by serving your words, hearing what you've said and serving them, I am confident I'll be able to give up the false idea. Even though he says it's almost an implication, I haven't given it up, but I'm confident by this process, I will give it up. And that's all that we're doing, as followers of Srila Prabhupada. He was so confident. He was never like, wishy-washy or anything. He was always confident when he spoke about Krishna and spoke about the material world and the influences. And so we don't have to be to that level. right now. But if we're confident in his words, then just like Vidura, we will be able to give up that false idea. By serving the feet of the spiritual master, one is enabled to develop transcendental ecstasy in the service of the personality of Godhead, who is unchangeable. So he repeats again, I heard you. I know the Lord is now, he's unchangeable by the influence of the modes, even though he's created them. Just as he is the source of the Madhu demon, but he was able to destroy the Madhu demon. In this last verse, we can reminisce a little bit as we're getting ready for Gorpanim. This is one of the main instructions of Lord Chaitanya as glorified by Sarvabhauma. Persons whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees. So it takes some endeavor. First of all, there's some endeavor that has to be made. You have to make some endeavor. And the endeavor is not hard. Prabhupada would always say, what is so hard? Come here, you chant, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, you dance, do some service. What is the difficulty? There's even a book recently. What is the difficulty? So there is no difficulty. It's so very easy. But if our austerity is meager, meaning I cannot give up my cloudy and sleep dream infected life, where I'm completely attached to that misconception of who I actually am, then yes, it's very difficult if we have meager austerity. So just a little austerity. But again, our austerity isn't negation, but the vairagis are negation, nothing. But for the devotees, it's not that, but this. We get that higher taste. Krishna delivers that higher taste because, again, he is right with us. Never forget that he is right with us. Pure devotees engage 100% in the glorifying of the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all living entities. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti. Three things. Vairagya by austerity, Vidya by knowledge, and Nija Bhakti Yoga by engaging in service. These things are what Lord Chaitanya is delivering us so mercifully, so kindly. So that was my best attempt to summarize and make these three questions and answers a little accessible, I hope. We'll go on now to ask more questions, and there'll be more answers. I have 2 more full cantos for that. So, well, Vairagya, sorry. Hare Krishna. Vairagya Vidya Nitya Bhakti Yoga. So Vairagya is renunciation. Vidya, intelligence, knowledge, and Nija Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga. And the whole translation. Let me take shelter. And so we can think of Lord Chaitanya's appearance is coming up. This is one of the best choicest verses for his glorification. Let me take shelter of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us real knowledge, Vidya, his devotional service, Nija Bhakti Yoga, and detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness, Vairagya. He is descended because he is an ocean of mercy, ocean of transcendental mercy. Let me surrender unto his lotus feet. So, very similar to this mood of Vidura to Maitreya, surrendering to his spiritual master. Sarvabhauma is giving this wonderful way for us to all surrender to and take shelter of Lord Chaitanya. Here, any questions or comments?
So, what exactly does it mean to serve the spiritual master? Does that mean like doing practical services for them, like chores, or also just hearing from them and inquiring from them? How can a disciple serve the spiritual master?
Yes. So there's Vani and there's Vapu. So the Vani is instruction. And when the spiritual master gives instruction, we serve the instruction by obeying them. That's why so many times he would say that there's no problem in the other religions. There are instructions there. Just do them. Just do the instructions. And you're serving the spiritual master. And then there's Vapu. Vapu is that personal service. And sometimes we may get that and sometimes we won't. And that's and Prabhupada often would say that the Vani is more important than the Vapu. Serving the instructions is more important than that personal. But we have to have a personal relationship with, just as Maitreya is having a personal relationship. And at the end of the fourth canto, we'll see that they depart. We don't know that, you don't hear of them coming together again, but he's always seeing him just like, oh, I'm so obliged to you. So obliged. Because now my understanding is clear. And so the spiritual master, whether it's a Diksha Guru, Shiksha Guru, Vartman Padaksha Guru, all the different gurus, the Guru in the heart, Lord Nityananda, all these gurus are giving us instruction. And so we're obliged to them all. And, and by following the instruction, by following their method of devotional service as they think maybe is best for us at this time, place, and circumstance, also was mentioned in by the time, the places, and the circumstances. We are here. That is great service. But yeah, it's also sweet if you can have some personal service. We hear so many hundreds of the devotees of disciples of Prabhupada and disciples of disciples, when they do get some service, just even if it's a tiny thing. Oh, I saw he was wearing the garland. He cooked for him. That's also very nice. And what does that do? That creates this affectionate relationship. A little bit we're glimpsing here. There's an affection between Vidura and Maitreya. Without affection, sometimes you don't feel obliged to listen to the Vani anymore, right? This person is just a figurehead and I don't really have any relationship to them, and I don't really understand the changes in my life due to their words and their instruction, then we may start to slip from those instructions. So they both are important. Whether it's direct service, it's the affection, I think, keeps us solid to the Vani, to the instruction. So, okay. Yes.
Prabhu, you repeated, you said 3 words, Vidya, something, and then Vairagya. Can you repeat that middle word again?
Bhakti Yoga.
Okay.
Nija Bhakti Yoga, I think, is pure devotion. Nija Bhakti. Huh? Nija means his own. His own, yeah. Bhakti to Krishna. Of course, Rupa Goswami proves there is no other bhakti to anyone. Bhakti is only for Krishna. But yeah, Nija Bhakti. It's an emphasis that to Krishna. Yes, Kartik.
Yeah, I was appreciating the point that you said that we don't have to be at the level that this devotee's at, where he just hears something and he's like, yes, I'm convinced 100%, that's it. But that we can have faith in the process, which kind of brings up for me just kind of a understanding of, or maybe an aspect of humility of like, yeah, this is where I'm at now, and I'm going to take up the process so that I can advance, rather than having this premature conception of being like needing to be a pure devotee at this moment and acting at that level, rather than just, okay, this is where I'm at,
what I need to work on, and because I don't have to be.
Yeah. And again, there's different stages of devotional service. Sometimes the faith is just a little bit of faith, and then it becomes firm faith. And so, as we progress through, we'll start to see some ebbs and flows um, of our own, state of consciousness, you could say. And so it's good to be observant of that. Oh, right now I'm not feeling. Okay, let me analyze. Am I doing what I used to do, or am I doing? Is there something more I could? But not that, 'cause sometimes we'll grab onto one of these. I just want to be a vidya. I'm just going to study. I'm going to channel these mantras, but I have no realization of it. We just can spout them off, and we've all seen devotees amazing at doing that, and then they're gone. Or we see the vairagis amongst us that are, always austere, hardly, but they're usually grumpy, right? So, and then the relationships with devotees are strained and things like that because they're thinking, oh, wow, look at you with socks on. And so these are the same things. These are the same modes and the same clouds that are covering us. It's just we're giving them new names, but it's still a cloud. But if it's Nija Bhakti, if it's focused on Lord Chaitanya, because it says at least wonderful foster. You can be a vairagi, you can be so you can be so knowledgeable, but if it doesn't foster means, what does a foster parent do? What is their prime activity? Providing care. Those who provide care for our nurturing of our bhakti lata bij, or our seed, our devotional attitude and seed is a tiny little thing. We always have to be very careful. So if anything we do, vairagya, vidya, any sort, if it's not fostering a cultivation of enhancing our devotion to Krishna, then it's Shami Eva Kevam. It's useless. It's not. Question.
I actually have two questions.
Oh, two questions. We are out of time. Huh? Yeah. Thank you very much.